Oh, good, thanks.
Yeah, I think we should be fine, except there's only one other person.
Okay. Thanks, Jared. See ya.
Hi, Alice.
Whoops. Hi there. I was
How are you?
Oh God, I feel like I'm going from meeting to meeting.
That's the way of the world these days, isn't it?
I know. I just feel like, oh my God.
Yep.
Oh my God.
We're getting geared up here. Let's see.
This will be different. I'd rather be all in a room together.
Does make it a little easier and more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Let's see. Hey, Larry. Here.
Hey, is my mic unmuted? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh,
Yep.
I thought I was muted. Okay.
No, you look.
Larry?
You're good. Yeah. Careful.
What's that?
What'd you say?
What'd she say? What did she?
I said, where are you?
I'm in the SAPA studio. I'm in the auditorium of Park Street School.
Oh, okay.
He's in his distinguished lounge.
Yeah. Well, it sounded like you were in an auditorium and on a stage.
Yeah, I have a stage behind me, right?
Can't have you on here.
You got the whole place to yourself.
Exactly. I'm the only one here. Yep.
Well, at least you don't have to wear a mask.
Right. The only other person in the building is maintenance, so I see him walking back and forth in the hallway. So Alice, you and Christy have a whole hour to yourselves, so we'll see.
We're gonna have a fireside chat.
Yeah, you guys
Probably gonna have to tap dance.
there's
when we
like
get
no time limits. You talk as long as you want, and maybe Caitlin's got some hard questions for you.
Yeah, maybe we'll grill you.
I saw that today. I couldn't believe it. I said, what?
Yeah, it's, well, never quite know how these things are gonna shake out, but
Yeah, well, that one kind of surprised me a little bit.
so we got a couple minutes here before we'll start things, and I guess I don't see Christy yet, unless he's, oh, there.
You'll be around. Who is the 802-3? What is that?
I'm not sure.
I can only see the speaker screen, view. So when you talk, I can see you. Otherwise, I can't see everybody. Caitlin, you're a co-host, right? You can see everybody as they sign in.
Yeah, I'm a co-host, and so I think we'll have to think exactly how you and I want to coordinate. Are you able to see the chat? Or,
Not now. We'll see.
okay.
I think only you and Asa upstairs, Asa's up there, so are going to see that and have to relay to me. But if you unmute the person, I don't need to be involved at all. You can just unmute and, Chuck Gregory.
Maybe that's the best way. Is I'll keep an eye on the chat, and what we'll do is we'll ask people to type their questions into the chat, and then I can call on folks.
If either can read the question or you can call on them for them to say their question. Yep.
Yep, perfect. Okay, that's what we'll plan on, and then let's see here. Hi, Christy.
Good evening, Caitlin.
How are you? Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for hosting this. I couldn't be any better, by the way.
That's wonderful. I'm glad to hear it. Allison, I see you there too. Hi, how are you? Thanks for, she's joining early to watch the fun and take notes. And all right. So I was just gonna do one. I'm gonna do one more little blast of this event on Facebook, just in case there's anybody that is forgetting and they want to remember to join us. So let me just push that. Oh,
WCFR is broadcasting us live, yeah.
that's exciting. Let's see. WCFR, yes. Thank you, John.
Yep, I'm here.
We really appreciate you doing this with us. I'm figuring out as I go here. So let's see.
Okay.
Well,
Are we ready?
I think we might as well roll. And Larry, you've got the agenda I sent you?
Yep. Well, I have it in my head. I didn't bring a piece of.
Oh, you can memorize it.
I can call it up on my emails if I want, but I think I got it.
Okay, beautiful. All right,
All right.
well, let's take it away.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to part one of the 2020 Meet the Candidates Forum sponsored by the Springfield Regional Chamber of Commerce. I'm your moderator, Larry Kraft. And our first hour will focus on the race for Springfield's representative in the Vermont House. And to get us started this evening, I'd like to introduce the Executive Director of the Springfield Chamber, Caitlin Christiana.
Thank you, Larry. Hi, everyone. I'd like to just thank you all for being here tonight. And I just want to start by thanking our friends at SAPA TV, Jared and Asa, for partnering with us to facilitate this event. The recording of tonight's conversation, I believe, will be available on their website and the Facebook page for folks who aren't able to join us live and want to check out what they missed. Thank you to John Landry of Rewind 106.5 WCFR for helping us to spread the word about this forum and for broadcasting live tonight. Of course, thank you to our moderator, my esteemed friend and colleague, Larry Kraft. And of course, thank you to all of our wonderful and lovely candidates for being with us and for sharing their points of view with us this evening. We at the Springfield Regional Chamber are always honored to bring these Meet the Candidates forums to the community. We normally do one for the Select Board and the School Board each year and one for House and Senate every 2 years. Usually we would be gathering in person, obviously, but this year has been anything but ordinary, as you all know. And the pandemic has really put a lot of things into a tailspin. We've been really busy at the Chamber working to serve our members in the community and doing outreach to assess ongoing needs, connecting folks with resources, and just, generally trying to provide support however we can. So like many of the businesses and organizations in the community, our chamber has been deeply impacted by COVID, and we've been working, myself and my assistant we've both been working remotely since March. We ultimately had to make the difficult decision to cancel all of our major fundraising events for this year. So for safety reasons, we canceled our annual golf tournament, and we also canceled our 2020 Vermont Apple Festival. So the reality is that we're in a fairly precarious position right now, and we've taken a significant hit to our revenue this year as a result of the pandemic. And our staff, including myself, we've been working reduced hours in an effort to help protect the Chamber's cash on hand until we can get our financing sorted out. So it means we've been stretched, especially thin thinner than usual even, and it's been a really challenging situation. So I'm happy to say that we're making headway with developing a sustainability strategy that will hopefully help to ensure our long-term stability, but it's been very stressful juggling everything. And so, all that being said, it was really important to us that we still make this event happen. And while it would have been wonderful if we could have done it a little earlier, because we do recognize that many people have already cast their ballots through the early voting process, but we felt that it was still worth it to provide the opportunity for folks to have this conversation tonight. And there may be some that are still undecided. There may be some folks that still plan to vote in person on the 3rd, and this forum is the opportunity for community members to share their questions and concerns and to learn more about what our candidates really stand for. So again, we appreciate all of you being here tonight, and we look forward to a lively discussion. We ask that folks keep it civil, of course, and so let's all set a good example, by treating each other with kindness and respect, and hopefully we'll all learn a few things here this evening. We do have a few candidates that were not able to join us tonight for various reasons, and among those, Randy Gray, who's a Republican candidate for House race, had a loss in his family and asked me to just let everyone know that he will be at the polls on the 3rd if anyone wants to ask him questions that day. And I imagine that all of our other candidates for House and for Senate will also likely be on site at the polls that day. So thank you all again. And without further ado, I will turn things back over to our moderator, Larry, and we'll get started.
Thanks, Caitlin. Caitlin used the term conversation, and that's exactly what these things have been. The Chamber has done these for many years, and I've been involved in the last few of them. We always try and keep the event casual and informal. Neither the Chamber nor the moderator have any prepared questions. It's really an opportunity. We call it Meet the Candidates, and it really is an opportunity for citizens and voters to get to know the candidates and their stand on various issues by asking them the questions that matter to them. So we're going to get started with the candidates for the House of Representatives, District Windsor 3-2. Our two Democrat incumbents I know are with us, Alice Emmons and Christy Morris. I can't see, but I don't think the Republican, Caitlin already said Randy wouldn't be here, and I don't think Stuart Beam is here. If he is, we'll certainly give him an opportunity to speak. So we have lots of time for the two of them to tell us a little bit about themselves, and then we'll take some questions. Alice, why don't you give some introductory remarks to get us started?
Okay, sure. Thank you, Larry. And I want to thank all of you, the Chamber, and you, Larry, as well, for putting this together this evening. And when I realized it would be Christy and myself and you folks, I was thinking, well, we could have a fireside chat. And if we were in the room together instead of in Zoom, we could sit in a circle and just have a conversation. So that's what I would sort of like to see tonight. We do have some folks here who I'm sure have some questions for both of us. And I would just encourage us to engage in a really healthy conversation. I'm running for re-election for state representative from Springfield. This is my home community. It's where I grew up. I went through the school systems here. I've seen the changes that have occurred in this town over the last 30 years. And I feel really strongly now that the community's on the cusp of really making some changes. We have a young population that has moved into Springfield over the last 4 to 6 years. And particularly with the COVID issue, we're seeing even more folks moving into town. We do have good housing stock on all price ranges. And I think we use that as an asset to our community. I think also we're a community, a full service community with a full service fire department, a police department, a hospital, a school system. We have water and sewer infrastructure. Those are such positive attributes to a community for their development and for their growth. And I really feel strongly that Springfield is right at the cusp of going forward. And I'd like to bring some of that energy that we have here as well up into Montpelier. As you well know, COVID, when it came in March, we were, as legislators in the General Assembly, we were all sent home to work. And we've been working through the end of March, April, May, part of June, and then we had a small session in the middle of August to September to deal with our state budget. And we did all of that remotely. We did it all through Zoom. And I think in Vermont, we're so fortunate that we can continue like this, because the way we govern in Vermont is building relationships, and we build relationships with each other. We build relationships with our colleagues. We build relationships with our executive branch. And if we didn't have that, we would not have been able to function as we did this spring and then in the fall as a legislative body. I value that. I value that as a Vermonter. I value that as a legislator, because that reflects into thoughtful legislation. And we ought to be proud as Vermonters that we function in a way that we're respectful of each other in the State House and out in our communities, regardless of one's political affiliation, social, economic affiliation, or any other attributes that people bring to the table. And I'm so thankful for that. And here in Springfield, a few of us were just at a meeting with the Springfield Regional Development Corporation. And we heard a presentation that really summed up where we are as a community. And I just want to relay the 4 pieces to building a strong community. And that can be a strong community for here in Springfield, for Windsor County, for Vermont. And this is what I think we need to do going forward. We need to invest in early care and learning of our children. We need to support our youth and our families. We need to look at college and career training. And then we also look at our community and our economic vitality. Those 4 entities work together. And the foundation is our youth and our educational system. And that's where I'd like to put my focus in the next 2 years if I'm returned to Montpelier. And I'd like to thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Alice. Christy Morris is another incumbent Democrat, and I think he's available, and it's his time for some introductory comments. Christy?
Thank you, Larry, and thank you, Caitlin, and the Chamber for hosting this event. They are important to meet the candidates and for us to hear questions. It's the only way that we can take our thoughts back to Montpelier for this community and represent them in a way that hopefully brings back some advantage. There's several ways that can happen, and one thing that I've learned from my 12 years on the select board, starting my 13th, is that we can't do this alone. Infrastructure rebuilding or economic development with jobs, education, you name it, healthcare, you name it, we can't do this alone. It's important that we have our state and federal partners involved with this. And the only way to do that is to engage them at the state level and with our federal partners through representation. And I believe that I have a vetted interest in our community, having been born here, educated here in our primary schools. I did go to Vermont Tech to get my associate degree there. I came back to Springfield. I enjoyed working 2 different locations. That's it. My entire career was working in 2 job sites. Well, the most recent was Lovejoy Tool Company, where I retired after 44 years of work there. Most recently as manager of engineering, which I was responsible for over 6 departments, overseeing 6 departments and efforts in that community, in that employer. I'm still part-time employed there, contracted for 8 to 10 hours a week, depending on the workloads, to hopefully continue giving back the knowledge that I'd received over 44 years and to help that company transition through a acquisition of another company and continue on with the expertise that I've developed. I was fortunate enough to develop there. There's so much that Springfield needs in moving this community into the future. We know where we've been. We were blessed to have the 3 industrial shops here that were the driving stimulus for this community for tax base and revenues and high-paying jobs and technical expertise, and it provided our citizens with a great living experience with housing and something we could be proud of. And we've fallen away from that. It seems like when the shops closed, and now we're back into a different type of environment. But we're not out of the woods yet with some sort of new branding and economic development, and it's important that that we continue to work on that. I've had a vested interest in Springfield since I've lived here my entire life so far, and I hope to continue that for a number of other years. And I've been involved with the Springfield Fire Department as a firefighter EMT for 44 years, 47 years. And I've been on the select board, like I said, 12 years. So I have a real interest in trying to redevelop Springfield and understand what we can do at the state level, as well as the local level to make that happen. Change is progress. Progress requires change, and I always wanted to be part of that. I believe I have been part of it so far. We have only started. We have a long way to go, and I recognize our needs, both from the local taxpayers and from the state level and our federal partners. And I'm just so appreciative of the opportunity I've had to be appointed to fill the seat that was vacated when former Representative Bob Forgeis passed away. So it's been a real blessing for me, and I would love nothing more than to continue that this fall if the citizens of this town see fit to support us.
Thank you, Christy. Thank you, Alice, for those opening comments. Caitlin, do we have any questions that have come in?
I don't see any yet. We should maybe just remind everyone that as we or if we didn't already, let folks know. I think the best way to handle this would be that if folks want to type their questions into the chat, we can call on individuals to repeat them aloud for the candidates. So if folks want to use that chat function, or I guess you could also raise your hand. The old-fashioned style, and we can call on folks. But now that we're into the Q&A portion, folks can pose their questions whichever way, and we will give folks a chance to speak.
There was a question when this was announced on Facebook. I think it was today. Somebody noted, ask the incumbents about the carbon tax. Alice and Christy, would you like to? It's not our question, but it was a question from a citizen who apparently isn't on tonight, but did ask it on Facebook. So any response to that issue from either one of you?
Well, this issue keeps coming up and keeps coming up, and I have not seen any legislation to date that pertains to that. I know we did pass a Global Warming Solutions Act that put in place a panel that's made up of the governor's office, some of his cabinet members, as well as people from the public that will be looking in initiatives for addressing climate change. And any proposals that come from that panel would need to go through the legislative process. The panel is right now in the process of being formed. There are names that have been submitted for appointments. And to this date, I have not seen a proposal for the carbon tax.
Thanks, Alice. Christie, anything from you on that issue?
I'll just follow up with that. There isn't legislation that was developed this past year for a carbon tax. I know it's been talked about, and I know there's rumors out there that that's a way to raise revenues. Certainly, we all recognize that we are one of the highest taxed communities in the state, if not the highest. And statewide, we're also very heavily taxed already. There's not a lot of diet for increasing our taxes unnecessarily without some sort of direct payback to or benefit to the constituents. For example, there's no carbon tax on the that's being proposed right now or this past year, even though there's some rumors or it was talked about, but there was none developed. So if we're going to reduce our, Alice mentioned the Global Warming Solutions Act, which I did support, maybe not in its entirety, but no legislation seems to go through without areas of concern for legislators. But the overall bill is on target for what we're looking at and what needs to be done worldwide, what needs to be done countrywide, and what needs to be done in the state. And it is controversial. And some of the programs that are being talked about aren't necessarily going to be developed without some sort of funding mechanism. And I'll talk about reducing the dependency on fossil fuels. If we're going to do that, you can do that through insulating homes or incentives for the non-fossil fuel heat generators, like a pump or solar panels for electricity, etc. And that stuff, we all know that those programs are expensive. There has been in the past programs to offer incentive and returns to constituents who purchase these items. Electric vehicles is another one that are expensive, and the average citizen finds it difficult to purchase them. So if incentive programs going to come in the future, or there may be a way to look at reducing fossil fuel dependency, and certainly whether it's a fuel tax or something to that effect, that's where those conversations are developed from, and they're not hugely popular. Locally, we recognize that additional taxes on our constituents is not popular, and we would not be the first ones to sign on board with them. But
Thank you.
Certainly, these incentive programs could come from developing something else than dependency on fossil fuels.
Thanks, Christy. Caitlin, did I see something come in on the chat?
So I put a comment in there just inviting people to type in their questions, and I think we've got Shar Osterland here who has a question. I'm just going to.
She needs.
Looks like she's unmuted. Hi, Shar. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. I have to see. I have my Word document. Let me pull that up, and I hope I can read my Word document and be heard. But anyway, this question is for Alice Emmons. And what I want to know is, as the Dean of the Vermont Legislature and a longtime incumbent, can you please explain how your incumbency helps you to be a better legislator and how that translates to helping Springfielders? Was that heard?
Yeah, I heard it.
Okay.
Yes, I have to unmute.
I'll mute myself now.
That was perfect, Shar. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So as I said in my opening statements, we're so fortunate to live here in Vermont, where we really work by building relationships. And the way legislation gets through is by having relationships with your colleagues, with the judicial branch, and with the executive branch. And that is built over the years of working with people. I have been there, and I just think of all the colleagues that I have worked with, and the amount of trust that has been built between us, and how that is so valued in a legislative process. The other thing that is so precious about the Vermont legislature is that your word is your word. And that takes a long time to build. And I've built that. And I've built that with some other long-term members who have been there. And also that helps the new members to realize that this is how we function in Vermont, and this is how we function in the General Assembly. And when you have those relationships with your colleagues or the relationships with the executive branch, when you have issues that pertain to your community, you can go directly to someone that you know and you have worked with and say, we've got this issue. I want to look at it this way. Can we do that? Can you help? And that's what I've been doing, and I will continue to do that. And again, we are so lucky here in Vermont that we know our neighbors, we know our community, and that also plays out in the General Assembly, where members are respectful of each other, they value each other, and they work in a very trusting environment, and your word is worth, your word is your word. And if you violate that, then you do not have credibility in that building. And that's what I've done over the years. My word is my word.
Thank you, Alice. Christy, I don't know whether you went door to door when you were running for select board, but I know you and Alice have been going door to door as candidates for this election. So I thought maybe I'd just give you an opportunity to share either questions that you were asked when you're doing your door to door, or just a summary of those experiences for you as a first-time candidate for the House. And then we'll hear from Alice, too. But what's it been like, Christy, going door to door?
Well, I still don't know what that's like.
What do you mean? You didn't do it?
We have been advised.
Oh, you're not doing it. Oh.
Door to door contact is discouraged, and we're not necessarily allowed to do that. So what we're doing in town as an alternative to getting postcards out and letters to the newspapers, and I do have a social media page, is standing on street corners in the neighborhoods, and call it a honk and wave, if you will. We do the waving, and occasionally some of the cars give us a honk. Others maybe not so polite, but so we've been standing on street corners. That has given us the opportunity for people to stop and talk if they want to. And we have had several people that have stopped and confided in us or have been talking with us. And it's encouraging in lieu of the fact that we're not able to go door to door. It's a new experience for me. I think this is a somewhat new experience for Alice. And that there's one comment I'd like to answer to the last question as well, that was asked of Alice by Shar. And I can tell you from my experience in Montpelier that there are legislators up there that are looked up to as being a foundation or a stability within the Golden Dome. And Alice is chairman of her committee for buildings and institutions, and is well respected. The fact that she's, I guess now is our longest running legislator that's up there in the House. She does come with a lot of respect, and certainly has helped me through my process with mentoring, and is a go-to person if you need to look for information. There were others up here in the building, but I'm fortunate to have Alice on our team coming from Springfield and able to lean on her for to getting some of the answers. So there's your answer to the door to door.
Alice, back to you. I'll change my question. What's it like not going door to door for you?
It's really different, I'll tell you that. And first off, thank you, Christy, for those nice words. I appreciate it. It's really nice. Thank you. as you know, I have gone door to door, and there are times when you really don't want to go out there knocking on doors and you force yourself to go. But the value of going door to door is people are willing to share with you thoughts, comments, situations in their life that they wouldn't normally share with someone that if they met you on the street. When you go to door, you're at the kitchen table, you're invited in to sit in the living room, and you really learn what your community is about. You really learn. My internet connection is becoming unstable. So people share with you very personal parts of their life when you're knocking on doors and you're invited into their home. And to me, that gives you a real pulse of the community that you wouldn't get otherwise. So in this whole time frame of COVID, it's been difficult to really connect with the voters in Springfield. And I think also I'm finding difficult, our community has changed quite a bit over the last 4 to 6 years. We have a lot of new people who have moved in here, and I would love to meet them. And you meet them at their door, and not being able to knock on doors hinders that. And it's just different. I like being available. I want to be available to people here in Springfield. I want people to feel comfortable to reach out to me, to reach out to Christy. We can be the go-between between your needs and Montpelier. And the way to do that is to reach out to us, to ask for that. And it's difficult when you can't do it going door to door.
Thanks, Alice. Caitlin, anything coming in?
I do see a question that came in from Doug Johnston. Doug, would you like to ask your question?
Sure. The question I have, what are you doing to streamline the Act 250 process to cut through the red tape? And I'll give you an example. I knew of a person in Ascutney who had a business he was trying to start up, and it was an electrical business, and this was quite a few years ago. And he had tried to get the building permits, etc., to start his business. And he was approached by New Hampshire, who gave him a line of, this is where you can save money, and this is where it's going to cost a little more than what it is in Vermont. And basically his overall expense was going to be reduced by about $60,000 a year. It seems to me that this Act 250 process, for somebody who wants to develop a business in Vermont, it's hard pressed, and it takes a long time to get through that process. And what can we do to streamline that process?
Alice?
So this has been brought up and tried to address for many years. The balance is, with the Act 250 process, to me, there's two balancing acts. One is you need a lot of local permits or meet local regulations, and sometimes people think that is Act 250, and it is not. It's whatever is needed zoning wise locally, or wastewater permits. A lot of those issues are driven by local concerns and local permitting. The other balance to Act 250 is allowing the public to have a voice, allowing abutters, people gaining party status. When we talk about streamlining, either you look at those permits and requirements that are needed at the local level and how you tailor that to be approved by the Act 250 process by the board. And then the other piece of this is, are we comfortable in limiting public participation and Vermonters having a voice in what happens in their neighborhood? That's a very hard nut to crack. And that's one of the stumbling blocks to really streamlining Act 250, because some folks believe, well, you've got to cut back on public participation And then other folks say, no, you can't do that because this is a local decision that the local folks need to participate in. So is there a silver bullet to streamlining Act 250? No, there is not. Act 250 is a very, very complicated law. And I was hoping this past session, 2-year session, that we would really start addressing some of the stumbling blocks in Act 250 and really grapple with it. And I think what we ended up with did not address that at all. Everything fell apart back in June. And I think part of that was because we were not in the building being able to work it through. We were in the process of using the Zoom meetings to do that. I hope this next legislative session, this next biennium, we really grapple with it because Act 250 needs to be looked at and brought up to the 21st century. It's an act that was put in place in the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s, and it's been built upon in a hodgepodge way. And we really need to look at it as a whole system in conjunction with what occurs permit-wise at your local community, as well as allowing a public voice.
Thanks, Alice. Christy, anything else you'd like to share?
Absolutely. Act 250 was one of the concerns that that I brought with me when I went to Montpelier this past year. And Alice mentioned that they spent the last 2 years, the last biennium was used where the committee that that initiated the changes to the Act 250 laws spent the last 2 years to try to develop the legislation. If you remember right, or if you don't remember, they spent time having the Senate hearings around the state in various locations to take testimony from people on Act 250, what was deemed to be the problems with the permitting process and what needed to be streamlined. And they took testimony and they went back to Montpelier and they crafted up this legislation in committee over that 2-year cycle, the last biennium. And it was difficult. I went to several of the caucus meetings to take the hearings or find out what they were trying to propose or what was being proposed and what some of the concerns were that people still had, especially from legislators that they were bringing to Montpelier from their constituents. So that was one of my targets when I went up there, was to look at some of the Act 250 legislation and see what could be improved. And unfortunately, when it came out of committee, it was so massive and so cumbersome, and I don't think it was well presented or understood by the members. And when it went over to the Senate side of the General Assembly, it came back, and the only changes were going to be to recreational trails and forest blocks, which was not seen as a step in the right direction. And as I think most people know, the governor vetoed that bill, and probably rightfully so. I wished it had more. I wished it had eased up on the permitting process. Alice is right in that local input and local voice is necessary in the process. We've just got to find a way to streamline the time frame that it takes and the cost that can be incurred by developers to reduce that somehow and quicken the pace. Either give them a no, that the project is not going to work there, or yes, this is what you need to make the project go. And unfortunately, that didn't materialize. But that was one of the goals I had, not a goal necessarily, but one of my interests when I went to Montpelier was to have input at the caucus level and bring it back to the committees to see if this could be effective or not. And unfortunately, it failed this time.
Thank you both. Caitlin, it looks like some things might be coming in. I can't read them specifically, but it looks like something coming in. Caitlin?
I just asked again if folks want to type in any other questions they specifically have. So folks, if you have anything you want to put in the chat, if you don't want to read your question aloud, you can say so and I'll be happy to read it for you. But we do, this event is for you, so we hope you'll put your thoughts in there and your comments and your questions. I might throw a question out just out of curiosity. I'd love to hear, I think obviously this has been a bizarre year. It's been stressful for a number of reasons, but I've been amazed at the number of silver linings that have been coming out of the pandemic situation and the way people are choosing to handle it. So I'm curious to hear from each of you, what are the opportunities that you see in this pandemic situation, and what are ways that we might be able to leverage that for Springfield and even for Vermont?
Go ahead, Alice. Yep.
I think one of the opportunities is really looking at how we look at our social system, our social services, our mental health system, as well as our healthcare system, because that's what's really going to be impacted. And, folks, there's a lot of pressure in this country right now with the possibility of the Affordable Care Act being thrown overboard. And, here in Vermont, we've done some things. This is pre-COVID, but we did some things to protect some Vermonters in case the Affordable Care Act was overturned. We did this, not this past session, but the session before, to still allow pre-existing conditions to qualify for any health care that would be given through Vermont, as well as not kicking people off of the healthcare system, and also looking at providing some form of subsidies to help people pay their premiums. So we've put in a little bit of that structure. This is pre-COVID, but this was in anticipation if the Affordable Care Act is ever overturned, which there may be a possibility of that. But that all ties in right now with COVID. Families, people in recovery, people with mental health issues, people in the criminal justice system, and just your average healthy family. Everyone is under a tremendous amount of pressure. And I think what will come out of this is a more coordinated approach when there are issues in families, be it domestic violence, be it substance abuse, be it mental health issues, be it someone who's incarcerated, that instead of people looking at it within their own silos, that folks will reach out and say, we have this pot of money here in this particular silo, we have money over here in this particular silo, but we're dealing with the same family. And all these issues are not independent of each other. And let's coordinate the delivery of services so it helps the whole family. And I think that's one thing that will definitely come out at the end when we finish with COVID. And hopefully that people will feel more connected to their community. I think just the act of wearing a mask says that it's not about me, it's about you. I wear a mask to protect you. It's common humanity. And that's what I hope continues after we get through the COVID situation.
Thanks, Alice. Christy.
Well, she covered a lot of the topics, and I don't necessarily want to repeat stuff, but everyone is aware, whether the critics don't want to believe COVID or want to believe COVID or it doesn't matter, is we need to take care of each other. This is Vermont. We're leading the country in our response to this situation, and that's a Republican governor leading the administration that we all support, because we are leading the country. Those are hard to it's hard to deny the progress that we're making. And regarding unification, this has been one of our it's probably been the most divisive election season that I think I've ever seen. And I would hope that you talked about the silos and that, where Alice was talking about the silos. I would hope that when the election is over, that somehow we can work towards some sort of unity. We can't divide and conquer. We've got to unite together. Whatever goal that we're trying to accomplish, it's the only way that we're going to get it completed or get it done or work towards improvement. These things don't happen overnight, whether it's systemic or whether it's some radical event that happens that causes people to think differently, or we all struggle, and we can only work through these problems together, and it's going to take time. And I think there's some good people trying to make this accomplishment to happen, and I'm hoping I can be part of that, and I'm going to work hard to seeing that we can.
Thank you.
So I think I'll cut it up there.
Thank you both. Has there been any word, come January, will you be back in session, or will you be continuing to work remotely? Alice, do you know yet?
We don't know yet. We've been working on this since back in the summer, trying to figure out how to get 180 of us back into the building. It's not feasible for the 180 of us to be back in the building. They're looking at space within the Capitol complex, which are some of the other buildings that are right there next to the State House. There's a variety of things being looked at in that, particularly for House members, it's really difficult. Our committees, we have 11 members to our committees. Our rooms are very small. And in order to have the 6 foot, 7 foot social distancing, it's going to be very difficult for us as House members to work within the State House. So they're looking at other spaces within the buildings around the State House for both House committees and Senate committees to meet. And they're also thinking possibly, instead of being up there 4 days a week, that half the committees would meet 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday, and then go home. And then the other half of the committees would meet Thursday and Friday. And the thinking on that is if there's any exposure to COVID, you would be home for 5 to 7 days, and then you would start seeing maybe some symptoms. So they're looking at a hybrid. We're trying to get us back in some form. And also, we'd still be using the format of Zoom in some form as well. You know, this is all dependent in terms of what our COVID numbers are going to be come December and January. And we just don't know at this point. So we're just putting everything together that we can.
Thanks. Caitlin, back to you. Anything coming in?
Yeah, we've got a few more rolling in, so maybe we'll try to blast through a few of these if we can fit them in. So I've got a question here from Stuart Lindbergh. Stuart, would you like to read your question aloud, or?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, this is to the candidates. Vermont has a $4.5 billion unfunded liability obligations, including teacher pension funds. What are your plans to address such a drastic situation?
Thanks, Stuart. Alice, you want to start us off?
We've been working on this for a number of years, and the state treasurer, Beth Pierce, has really been grappling with this and putting packages together that we have supported. The big piece of it is to fund our liability, our yearly liability. At this point, we are chipping away at that. And there is enough money in the fund to cover those folks who are retired now and are projected to be retired in the future. That does not mean that you let go of funding your teacher retirement as you should be, as well as the state employees. It's something the legislature has been working on continually, And it is part, when we put together a state budget, it is very clear that we meet our obligations for the state employee retirement fund as well as the teacher retirement fund.
Thanks, Alice. Christy, anything to add?
Yeah, I'm going to ditto most of that, concur with Alice. There is a plan in place and it's being worked on to try to chip away at it. I just want you to realize that the entire state general fund and education fund budget is $4 billion by itself. We get another $2 billion contribution from the federal government. And then there's some interfund transfers that bring it up to the total spending budget of nearly $8 billion. So the 4.5 billion would be 1 year of a state budget in its entirety. And so obviously that didn't happen overnight. It happened over decades of neglect, that it wasn't funded properly. But in order to cover expenses of a state, sometimes those resources are seen as the best place to not necessarily fund in their entirety, and you can use that money for spending elsewhere. So it's not a good situation. It's not one that's necessarily acceptable, but certainly all of the teachers in the state and all of the state employees are not going to be retiring in 1 year. Therefore, the requirement to have the entire retirement package would not be necessary. Alice alluded to the fact that there is enough money in there to cover the people that are retiring now, and certainly we're chipping away at it, like she mentioned, to try to get that into a better position economically.
Thanks, Christy. Caitlin, another question, please.
Yeah, so I'm going to read on behalf of Jillian E. She's asking to hear what will be done to reduce pressure on small businesses. Will the candidates fight to block raising minimum wage for entry-level jobs and reduce business taxes? Bring better paying jobs like trades and technology to Vermont? And she also has curiosity about encouraging trades education to aid in job advancement to earn a living wage.
Alice.
Where do I begin?
I squeezed a lot into that one.
Where do I begin? I think when you're dealing with the minimum wage, you know, people think it would, whatever figure you put out there, if it's $15 an hour, there's no way that you jump from a current wage of about $11 an hour up to 15 in one fell swoop. You do that over a period of years. And that's one way of really letting the system absorb it. In terms of really working with our trades, I think one of the issues that we really need to look at is, and we've done this a little bit in the past, is really look at our tech centers, be it our local tech centers, but also VTC, Vermont Technical College. Those are terrific resources to get our youth involved in the trades. The trades are the places where we're going to need the workforce all over. But when you're looking at plumbers, you're looking at electricians, construction workers, those are the trades where right now we have an aging population, and there's a lot of folks that are going to be retiring over the next 5 years. And we don't have the workers coming in to replace that. And I think that's where we really need to put some initiatives. And I know about 4 years ago, we really invested on the state level. We invested in VTC and upgrading their laboratories, their labs, in that they were so outdated that students were really stopping. They weren't coming to VTC because the labs just were not there for what is there in the industry. We've upgraded that. We did the same thing in Castleton for some of their nursing programs. That's what it's going to take. And it's going to also take a real concerted effort to not stigmatize people who want to go into the trades, because not everyone wants to go to a 4-year college. And the trades are a place where that's where we become strong as a society, because we need those jobs and we need those skills. And that's where I'd really put my focus on that, to help small businesses.
Thanks, Alice. Christy, anything to add?
Oh, absolutely, boy. There was a lot there in that question, and I'm not sure we've got enough time in this program to answer everything. The state of Vermont does support small businesses, whether you believe that in its entirety or not, but small businesses are the backbone of Vermont's economy. It's not the huge employer. We don't have a lot of automotive plants here, aircraft plants here. You know, Vermont survives on the back of the small businesses, and they are supported. There's a number of different programs that the state funds at the local level as well, the regional development corporations, et cetera, and workforce investment groups, and so on and so on. So they are considered in. You mentioned the minimum wage part of that as well as in part of that question. It's kind of a catch-22. As the cost of living goes up, wages need to go up. Wages don't seem to be going up to outpace the cost of living at times. Certainly when fuel prices or gasoline prices go up to almost $4 a gallon like they were several years ago. So there was some action in the legislature to try to address the minimum wage, and the $15 amount was passed around, and that was not widely accepted, and that's not where we ended up. So Alice is right. It was around $11, $10.97 to be exact, and then it went up to $11.76 and $12.25 for next year as an approach to try to increase the minimum wage. But along with that goes the cost of living or the cost of doing business. So you have to be careful about trying to get the cart before the horse if we're not prepared to see what the result's going to be. As far as the workforce itself, the cost of education is so expensive that a lot of people can't afford to send their kids to college. Students are graduating, or seniors are graduating out of high school, and they're looking at a 60 to 80,000 or more loan by the time they get done with their 4 years of education, if they can manage that, and it's just not sustainable. So that's causing a lot of our young workers or young students or younger people to leave the state to go find those high-paying jobs elsewhere, and we need to develop our economy and bring in the higher-paying jobs and such. But that's a huge undertaking that so far we don't have all the answers for that yet. But we're picking things off a little bit at a time. We're trying to address the educational cost in Vermont. As you know, the state colleges were rumored to close for Vermont Tech and the northern universities, and that's not acceptable. And the state recognized that and tried to compensate for that. Along comes COVID-19, and this pandemic has us all top-ended and bottoms up, and it's difficult. But the solution is going to take time. It just doesn't happen overnight. But the state is recognizing certainly the importance of the small business, and I know whether that's accepted or not by a small business person that's struggling. We understand that, but it is a highlight of what we're trying to do.
Thank you, Christy. Caitlin, we only have a couple minutes left. Do you have another question you want? We could spend the last couple minutes answering one more question if there is one.
Well, yeah, I was just trying to figure out what we should do. I know Doug had another couple questions he might have been interested to throw out there. Jillian had another question. Maybe we'll throw it back to Doug just for one last question, and then we'll wrap it up.
One of my questions was with the retirement system and the deficit that the state has. I know when the retirement system I was in, Vermont Municipal Retirement System, is when they were running a deficit or they were concerned about the money available to pay out, they increased the contribution rate to the employee. And I was wondering if that is being done. Also, I think part of that came also with the individual town as also, but I'm not sure on that. But you know, they have different retirement systems that require they have different benefits. Whereas the Vermont Municipal Retirement System, we don't have insurance with that. Where there's other systems like the state employees have that it costs extra money. Now, what is being done? Are they contributing extra, a percentage more than to cover that extra cost or not?
Alice, please.
So whenever you get into retirement and looking at the contributions, that is a long process with the members and with management. And it's not done through just passing a bill and saying you're going to contribute more. There's a lot of discussions that occur among all the parties. And that's true for the state employee retirement system as it is with the teachers' retirement system. With the teachers' retirement system, we made some changes in that a number of years ago where there was different levels that teachers could buy into. And those were all negotiated with the administration, with the legislative branch, and also with the teachers. So the same thing would occur with the state employees. I'm not aware of anything in that direction at this point, but that's not to say that that wouldn't be on the table over the next couple of years.
Thanks, Alice. Anything from you, Christy?
Just a brief comment. I'm not aware of any efforts at the legislative level to try to improve the retirement system for the employees or contributing more towards it. I know those are, as you know, Doug, those are negotiated that Alice was just alluding to, usually with the contract times. And we do look at, I'm well aware that some of our neighboring states may have a better package for our retired employees than Vermont does. But none of that comes without increasing revenues from somewhere, and I'm just not. I have not heard of any discussion or legislation that's coming out from the General Assembly that they'd support any, or that there's any changes on the horizon.
Well, just to follow up a little bit, Christy, on that, I know they changed the law with the Vermont Municipal Employees Retirement System. Depending on what program that you were in, they increased it. And we didn't have a say whether you were in the union or not. It's just that you went with it. So I find that hard to believe that that can't become law. The law will supersede any of the union contracts that in the state. So I'm just saying that they should look at that instead of relying on the taxpayers to make up the difference.
Thank you, Doug, and thank you, Christy and Alice.
We're at least 20 years ago.
Okay. We have overrun our hour, and our, as Alice characterized it, our fireside chat has run its course. So thank you, candidates, Christy Morris and Alice Emmons, for your time this evening and for seeking to represent the community of Springfield. Thank you to the Chamber and to the folks who asked their questions this evening. We're going to take a break. We're going to take a break for 10 minutes or so, and then we'll come back with our Senate candidates.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for the questions and the program.
Thanks for
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi there. This is Mason Wade.
Hi, Mason. How are you?
I am here. I'm doing pretty good.
Great.
Is there anything I should know about how to interact?
So, yeah, thank you for asking. We're glad you're here. We're just now taking our 15-minute break, so we've got a little time between now and when the forum for the Senate starts at 7:15. I think we can hear you pretty well, so we should be good. Pretty much what's happening is we will, our moderator will give everybody a chance to do very, very brief opening remarks. And so I imagine Larry will just call on each candidate individually, and then we'll open it up for Q&A, and we're basically just calling on people individually to ask their questions. And then because we have quite a few candidates, I don't know, we'll have to see whether we have time for closing remarks or not. I think our priority is to make sure that everybody in the audience gets a chance to ask their questions. So at the moment, we're just in a break, and then we will be starting right at 7:15.
Okay, well, I'll just stay online because I hate to lose contact now.
Yeah.
Is there a local television involved with this tonight?
This Zoom event is being hosted by SAPA TV, which is our local cable access company. So they are hosting the Zoom forum and also recording. So this event will be shared on their website and through our social media platforms afterwards. We also have John Landry here of Rewind 106.5 WCFR, and he is broadcasting live.
I'm sorry, is that a newspaper?
That's a radio station. Yep.
That's the radio. Is there any newspaper?
I didn't see any, although some of these phone numbers I don't recognize. So, but we appreciate you being here, and we'll get started in about 5 or 10 minutes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi, this is Keith Stern.
What's that?
This is Keith Stern.
Hi, Pete. How are you?
Hi,
This is
Pete.
Mason.
How are
Wade.
you?
Good. Just want to make sure I'm on.
Yep, I can see you and I can hear you. So I don't know if you heard, we're just in our kind of break period, and we'll be getting started here. For
Okay, because I've never done Zoom before.
Well, you're doing pretty well so far.
Oh, good.
We've got Larry Kraft as our moderator, so
Right.
he will, I think he'll do a great job of calling on everyone individually. So it should be pretty clear, but we'll figure it out as we go.
Okay, sounds
All
good.
right, great. Thank you. So, yep, we'll get started here pretty soon.
Okay.
Hi, Dick. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for being here. I'm just trying to see
Yeah.
everybody. So we've got Allison here, and I see Alice. Let's see. Allison, Dick, Alice, Keith, Mason. Do we have Doug? Did I see Doug Wilberding?
He looks like he's connecting in.
Okay. Okay, yep, looks like we've got him, and then I think I saw Jack Williams earlier.
Yep, I'm here.
Oh, okay, there you are, great.
Yep.
Okay, good. So this is gonna be a little bit of a more tight group because we've got so many candidates, but we've got a very experienced moderator, so we'll hope Larry will handle it, and we'll do the best we can. We appreciate you all being here. And I've got to just feed my cat so he gets off the table.
I saw Alice's cat made appearance.
a silly question.
Uh-oh, Beth is in.
Yep.
Don't get me out there.
I'm not.
Hey,
I
Al.
wish I knew how to activate this when Alice and Krista were on there so I could tase them about the, I don't care. So I knew how to tase them about the prisoners. All about protecting the prisoners. They don't care about the victims. That's fine. Oh, just answer. Go ahead.
Hello? That's what I told her.
Okay. Just get that out. All right. Night.
Okay. I know they can.
They should tell them, people, mute yourself until it's your turn.
Caitlin, I don't have the graphic here for muting my mic. There's a little bit of background noise in my house. I'd like to mute, but I don't see the.
Let me see if I can mute. Did that? It looks like that. I wonder why you don't see it on your side, but I can try to work with you as we go, and I'll try to unmute you as needed and remute as we go. Thank you.
Caitlin, you might want to mute me too, because I've got a cold, so I might be doing a lot of coughing.
Okay, yeah, we'll do our best to keep everyone muted that's not speaking at the time, and then we'll try to get people unmuted as it's their turn to speak. All right, so we're at 7:15.
Yep.
Larry, are you there?
I'm all ready.
Okay, should we get rolling?
We will. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. We're about to begin part 2 of the 2020 Meet the Candidates Forum sponsored by the Springfield Regional Chamber of Commerce. I'm your moderator, Larry Kraft, and I am sitting alone in the Park Street Auditorium, which serves as the studio for SAPA TV and also the home of the Black River Innovation Campus. The rest of you are joining this event via Zoom or by telephone, so we're going to do our best to make it seem like a forum, a community forum, as best we can. And to get us started, our host organization, as I said, is the Springfield Regional Chamber of Commerce, and to welcome us tonight is its Executive Director, Caitlin Christiana.
Thank you, Larry. So again, I'd just like to thank everyone for being here this evening. I'm going to keep my remarks brief because I know we have a limited amount of time for the candidates and for questions. But I did want to thank our friends at SAPA TV, Jared and Asa, for partnering with us to facilitate this event. Tonight's forum will be recorded, and so that will be available on their website and through their Facebook page for folks that aren't able to join us live and that want to check it out afterwards. John Landry of Rewind 106.5 WCFR is, we want to thank him for helping us to spread the word about this forum, and he is also broadcasting live tonight. A thank you to our moderator, Larry Kraft, and also, of course, thank you to our candidates for being with us and to all of you in the audience that are here to share your questions and concerns. We at the Chamber are always honored to bring these Meet the Candidates forums to the community. We usually do one for Select Board and School Board every year and one for House and Senate every 2 years. Normally we'd be gathered in person, but of course, under the circumstances, virtual was the way to go. And I think that's all I'm really going to say. I did want to acknowledge that it would have been wonderful if we could have done this a little earlier, given that a lot of folks have done early voting through the mail ballot system, but I think that it's still worthwhile to have this conversation and for folks to have a chance to share their perspectives. So we really appreciate everyone being here. And well, again, I'm going to just ask, not that there's a need because we're in Vermont and we all are, good salt of the earth, but we just want to make sure everyone keeps it civil. We want to treat each other with kindness and respect, and hopefully we'll learn something here this evening. So thank you all, and I'll turn it back over to Larry.
Thanks, Caitlin. I said that this is part 2. Part 1 was from 6 to 7. We had a very nice conversation with the candidates for the House seat, for the 2 House seats. And for the next hour and 15 minutes, we're going to be meeting some of the candidates, almost all of the candidates for the Windsor County Senate seat. We're going to have short, as Caitlin said, brief introductory comments from all of the candidates who are with us tonight. And then we're going to be opening the floor for questions from people, from citizens and voters who are online or on Zoom. Neither the Chamber nor the moderator have any prepared questions. This is indeed a Meet the Candidates forum, an opportunity to get to know them and get to know how they stand on issues that mean something to you. To answer once we get past the introductory comments, you'll be asking your questions via the chat or by raising your hand. Caitlin's handling that. If you have any questions, she can help you with that. As always, and Caitlin referred to this, this is casual and informal. This is not a debate. This is not an interview. It's really a conversation. So I think we have 7 candidates. We have the 3 Democrat incumbents, Allison Clarkson, Dick McCormick, and Alice Nitka. We have one of the 2 Republican candidates, Jack Williams. The other, Michael Jasinski, is not with us this evening. And we have 3 independent candidates, Keith Stern, Mason Wade, and Doug Wilberding. So we're going to have brief comments from people in that order. We're going to start with Allison Clarkson.
Well, I'll just say, sorry, Allison, I'm going to say we're going to try to keep these to like 2 minutes because we want to make sure we leave time for people to actually ask questions. So I appreciate everyone trying to be through.
Great. Good evening, and thank you to the Springfield Chamber, Caitlin, this is great, and to SAPA and to WCFR for hosting this forum. This is terrific. I'm Allison Clarkson. I'm a Vermont state senator. I'm married to Oliver Goodenough and the mother of 2 sons, Ward and William, and we've lived in Vermont for 30 years. For 4 years, I've had the honor of representing the people of the Windsor County District. Before serving in the Senate, I represented Plymouth, Reading, and Woodstock in the House of Representatives for 12 years. In the Senate, I currently serve as the Vice Chair of Senate Economic Development, Housing, and the General Affairs Committee, and as the Clerk of the Senate Government Operations Committee. In addition, I'm a member of the Climate Solutions Caucus, the Women's and Social Equity Caucuses, and I'm on the State Workforce Development Board. Responding to the COVID crisis has been the driving priority for the legislature since mid-March. We've worked hard to relieve the financial upheaval Vermonters and Vermont businesses have suffered, and to enable life to adjust and continue without barriers to productivity. COVID has shown us many good things. There have been many silver linings, which we talked about earlier, but it's shown us the value of experienced leadership. If reelected, I will hit the ground running as we continue to deal with this pandemic and its impact to Vermont.
Thank you, Allison. Dick McCormick.
Oh. Hang on, we got to figure out how to unmute him here. I was able to mute him. Oh my gosh. I wondered if it was going to do that. It let me mute him, but will it let me unmute him? Oh goodness. Dick, I'm sorry. I'm seeing a button that says ask.
He should be able to hit on his image and just on the upper right corner. No.
If you hover at the bottom of your screen, is there a bar that? My goodness, this is.
Do you want to? We could come back to him.
Did you find something? Oh. Sue said hold down the space bar. Did that do something?
Who said that?
Sue Dowdle, which is the
How about now?
There we go.
Yes.
Dick.
Okay, an unmute sign came up.
All right.
Okay, great.
Okay. Hi, I'm Dick McCormick. I live in Bethel, Vermont with my wife Cindy. We have 5 grown children between us and 6 grandchildren. And I have served in the Vermont Senate with a 4-year absence since 1989. I've served on a grand tour of the committees, which gives me I think a pretty good insight into how state government works. I presently serve with Dallas Nitka on the Appropriations Committee, and I also serve on Health and Welfare. So we've been right in the middle of the COVID thing. I presume we're going to be getting into specifics throughout the next hour. So I just want to start with a basic statement of my political philosophy. And as a very progressive legislator, people are surprised to hear me say this, but I always start every analysis with principles I learned first from William F. Buckley, the conservative philosopher, who defined his conservatism as the rebuttable presumption that all else being equal, tradition deserves the benefit of the doubt. And Thomas Jefferson, who said that government governs best that governs least. Jefferson did not say that doesn't govern at all. What I do is I put the burden of proof on anyone who thinks we need government doing anything. The thing is, our society is such that that proof is often easily met. And so I find myself usually, having started out with those 2 conservative baselines, I find myself coming down with the progressives on almost every issue. I think right now the big issue is COVID. If this had been a month ago, I would have said it's not going away, but in fact, in many ways, it's getting worse. And that is 2 things: the health care crisis, and it is a massive economic tsunami. And I presume that we'll get into the weeds on that as the hour goes on. It's been a great honor serving the people of Windsor County.
Thank you, Dick. Next up is the third Democrat incumbent, and that's Alice Nitka.
Hi, I'm Alice Nitka. I live in Ludlow. I currently am appointed to be the vice chair of the Judiciary Committee, and I'm also the vice chair of the Appropriations Committee, which does the budget. I'm honored to have been appointed to these positions. I also am the chair of the Judicial Retention Committee, which is the committee that judges judges, so to speak. Let's see. I live in, as I said, I live in Ludlow, I'm married, have two grown daughters and two great grandsons. Not great, two grandsons who are great. They're little. And I have to admit, I've been working very hard across the aisle with persons of all parties. I really like to know everything about a bill before I say I'll vote for it or won't vote for it. And it's been a great place to work. You learn so much, you meet so many people, and you hear the stories from your constituents and others as to what their needs are out there in the community. And they're very varied and towns' needs are also very varied. If I think of Norwich versus Springfield, the needs there are very different, and their ability to take care of their citizens are also quite different. So anyway, it's been a very educational experience, and I hope I've been listening to what my constituents have to say, even though they may not always agree with me or me with them, but I certainly want to listen to them. So thank you.
Thank you, Alice. Next up is one of the two Republican challengers to the three Democrat incumbents, and that's Jack Williams.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. First, I'd like to compliment Caitlin. We received your real nice email. I want to read a line of it to everyone. It says, and so this was the best we were able to put together for this year. She talked about a number of things that they went through. Caitlin, you did a marvelous job putting this together, with what you had. It's actually a very nice meeting, and I was fortunate enough to sit in the first hour, learned a lot. Everyone, my name is Jack Williams. I live in Perkinsville, Vermont with my wife. We've lived there for 30 years. I'm actually born and raised in Colorado. And from there, I went to the military for 20 years, where I retired out of the military. And I met my wife in the South, and she was from Vermont. And after we retired, we moved to Vermont, which time I become employed with the Vermont Agency of Transportation, which I've worked with them for basically 30 years. And so I have a long career of government service, both federal, state, and private industry. And this is, even though I'm not elected, I'm running as a conservative. I found by listening to some of the different people, especially in the first hour, a lot of their thinking, we think alike. A lot of our issues we agree upon. We have some differences. And so running for the Senate, I have certain areas that I feel very strong about. And if elected, probably the most primary thing is I will represent the will of the people. I will listen to the people and represent their will. But on the other hand, I do have certain things that I'm very strong about, and I won't compromise on them. I'm basically a middle of the road conservative, and I'm able to listen to both sides of the issue. That's what I really pride myself about, is being able to listen to, both sides of the issue. So thank you for having me on.
Thank you, Jack. And now we'll turn to the first of three independent candidates, Keith Stern.
Might be having that issue again. Let's see. Did you get it, Keith?
Yes, I did.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Keith Stern, running as an independent. Well, my statement is Vermont has a $4.5 billion pension fund deficit. Vermont is one of the highest tax states in the country. Vermont is the least business-friendly state. Businesses are struggling. Vermont is near the top in cost of housing in relation to income. The cost of living is becoming unbearable for too many of us. But what was the Democrat solution? Pass the Global Warming Solutions Act, the most destructive bill in Vermont's history. We will see taxes rising, businesses forced to close or leave, closing costs rising. In short, our cost of living will go up. If this is the Vermont you want, then your choice is easy. However, this isn't the Vermont you want, then you have decisions to make. I am running to represent the people. I want to make sure the most vulnerable people are taken care of in this state, which I don't feel is happening now. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Next up is Mason Wade.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep. Yes.
Oh, great. First, I want to thank Caitlin and the Chamber for all their hard work in the revitalization of the Springfield region. Unfortunately, you're not able to see me, but Okemo Community Television did 10-minute spots, which you can Google Mason Wade Senate 2020 and watch me there. Why don't you see me? Well, I'm 6 miles from my home with a bunch of cows in the best cell service I can find. And on top of that, it's 3 miles from my home to a hard line. So I'm not the only one in Windsor County with some issues around cell service. And this is a critical issue when we talk about the well-being of democracy and making sure we don't disenfranchise a lot of Vermonters. One of my situations is being able to let the voters know that they do have a choice in sending a new group of folks to Mount Pelier or virtually. And that would be actually sending the 3 independent candidates as a new choice from the career politicians that have been very actively busy with their mail in literature and ads that we've been seeing. And one of the areas that concerns me is that I'm very thankful that we have this forum tonight, but for a lot of Windsor County folks, it's very late. And thinking about this, I was going, well, gee, the voters voted in 3 senators, and they're kind of the watch people to make sure our democracy is doing well. Where were they when the alarm bell should have been sounded about making sure we had some debates for this race? I'm going to let it go with that. I am very much concerned that the party politics has dragged, homogenized our democracy and has dragged us down a rat hole. And the best thing that we can do is change this out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mason. And finally, our 7th candidate with us tonight is another independent, Doug Wilberding.
Thanks very much. Larry and Caitlin, thanks for putting this on, and the Springfield Chamber of Commerce. Really appreciate it. I live in Norwich, Vermont, and I'm a native of Windsor County. I was born and raised in Norwich, technically born in Hanover at Dartmouth Hitchcock. But I am one of 8 kids, family of 10 in Norwich, and I've actually been connected with Vermont my entire life for over 50 years. I went to college at St. Michael's and then later NYU, and returned to Vermont about 4 years ago. And I built my house, which is essentially net zero. It's a green home that my wife and I built ourselves. We have a biomass fueled furnace from Austria, and we have off-site solar. and we essentially have zero energy costs and zero fossil fuels. So I plan to lead by example. I'm involved in politics in Norwich. I am a trustee of public funds, and I'm also a lister. And as a trustee of public funds, we're hoping to initiate something in the near future where we will do green lending in town to help other organizations in town reduce their fossil fuels. I look forward to the opportunity to serve the state and Windsor County especially, and to hear the questions from the public. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug. In the past, we've taken questions from the floor and told people they could address that question to a specific candidate or to all the candidates. It may be a little bit difficult to handle with so many of you, but we'll see how the questions come in, and we'll do the best we can. Caitlin, have any questions come in so far?
Yes, thank you. And I'm going to try to be rapid with these. I'm going to read one on behalf of Jillian that we didn't have time for it in the House forum, but I think it's relevant in this conversation as well. She's curious how small businesses will be supported when their payroll eclipses their operating costs. Are they going to be required by Vermont minimum wage law to pay entry-level jobs such as cashiers, janitorial services, food servers, and retirees working for the same wage as licensed nurses, which she's saying it has a Vermont average of $14 an hour, or EMTs of $16 an hour. So I guess addressing the concern of minimum wage, the burden on the businesses versus, the desire to give a livable wage to employees, and just thoughts on that issue in general.
So that's a question about small business, and I think it's appropriate that the small business owner, at least the one that I know of on the ballot, and that's Keith Stern. You want to get us started with this one, Keith?
Sure. Absolutely. The thing about minimum wage is that if somebody is making $11 an hour now and it goes to $15 an hour, somebody that's making $15 an hour isn't going to still work for $15. You're going to want to go up to $19 an hour. You're going to see the cost of running a business go up so drastically. There's nothing to hold businesses back from moving to New Hampshire, moving probably to New York if New York is sensible about it, just closing because they can't compete with New Hampshire. I was going to buy a tire company after I retired from my business. I'm looking at cheaper tire down in Bells Falls. Seemed like a great investment. I started thinking about it. Do I really want a business here in Vermont? I decided, no, I'm not going to take the chance. It's a good thing because now the Global Warming Solutions Act is going to kill that business. The cost of living, the cost of doing business is already higher than New Hampshire because they have to add on 6% sales tax. Now, when their fuel costs are going to go up drastically, how are they going to compete at all? And the answer I see is they're not going to be able to.
Thank you, Keith. I'm going to ask Dick McCormick to chime in on this issue, if he would.
Sure. Am I on?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, in my opening remarks, I mentioned that we are really experiencing an economic tsunami because of COVID. And in fact, the question about minimum wage was asked in the context of that economic tsunami, when a business's expenses are greater than its earnings. I look to the model of Franklin Roosevelt and the Great Depression, when he had what was called the 3 R's: relief, recovery, reform. We can talk about recovery and reform hopefully over the next hour, but on the relief matter, the fact is we are in an extraordinary time of extraordinary hardship, and individuals, businesses, municipalities in Vermont, we need cash, and we need it soon. And that's to say the federal government, which is the only entity big enough to take care of that. They have got to come through with aid. The governor has said as much. As far as the minimum wage, a day's, I have enough of traditional values to say a day's work deserves a day's pay. And no one who works full time should earn less than it takes to support their family. And the scare stories about, well, if you raise the minimum wage, and then it's a long list of horror stories that comes from the right, none of which are actually true in the real world.
Thank you, Dick. Jack Williams, what do you have to say about this issue?
When it comes to the minimum wage, what we got to do is to think out of the box. It's a business is going to, when you raise the wage, they're just going to pass the cost on. And it's that simple. Businesses have to make a profit. Now, I really liked the answer that Alice Emmons gave earlier. What we need to think about is higher education and the trades. That's the key right there, is instead of everyone focused on raising the wage and not having the education to back it up, it just doesn't work. The key is to really invest in our trade schools and our colleges, train people for higher paying jobs, and it'll take care of itself. But you can't just keep raising the wage because business is going to pass it on. So I'm a big believer in higher education, the trade schools, supporting our colleges.
Thank you, Jack. Anybody else? Doug, do you have anything you want to share on this issue?
Yeah, thank you very much. I remember when I was growing up here in Norwich, working at the Hanover Inn, vacuuming carpets, my minimum wage was $2.15 in the 80s. And it is a struggle. One thing that we need to think about, though, is corporate taxation. In Norwich, being on the border of New Hampshire, we see a lot of small business and medium and larger business owners who have their companies based in New Hampshire rather than Vermont. Global Rescue, for one, they employ 200 employees in Lebanon, and they would love to be in Vermont. So the cost of having a corporation based in Vermont, the taxation is prohibitive. So people are looking at other states. We do need to address a fair wage, a livable wage. And there's a lot of people in Windsor County, and especially in Norwich, a lot of small business owners that are focused on that. I know of one, John Pepper at Boloco, who's got 15 locations, a burrito shop, and he is struggling to stay alive. So I think we have to look at the greater issue of what we can do to attract corporations to come to Vermont without being taxed so aggressively that they can't employ people.
Thank you, Doug.
Yeah, I'd like to.
Go ahead. Is that Mason?
Yes, it is.
Go ahead.
Yes. Yes. Well, as we all know, and I appreciate everyone speaking on this subject about minimum wage, the $15 an hour. But mid-March, the world was turned upside down. And we've been just bailing ourselves out. And we all can see a lot of writing on the wall. What's today? 29 cases in Vermont. It's increasing. We're going to have a tough winter. And people are going to be struggling. And how do we get down to the local level and start helping and working with our neighbors? And so there's a bigger picture going on. We may see a whole new structure about wages coming forth out of all this. But as someone who's been an entrepreneur and working in Vermont for quite a while, when I first got to the state, I worked with farmers. I had a real interest in the agricultural world, working for $3 an hour with a lot of love and appreciation of what was going on. But you can't make it on $35 an hour anymore. It's a fact. So the Vermonters haven't been, my personal feeling is our public education system has failed us. Our young people need to know how to become entrepreneurs, and we got a lot of disconnect. And because of this pandemic is only a beginning, when we start looking at the climate emergency issues, what are we going to do with all the U.S. refugees who are going to be pouring into Vermont? Because we all know that this is a sweet spot in the United States. We're not dealing with the wildfires. We're not dealing with the hurricanes, the tornadoes, or the sea rise. People are going to be coming to Vermont, and how do we work this out? Thank you.
Thanks, Mason. I want to get back to our other two incumbents. Allison, do you want to share anything on this issue?
Yes, I would. Thank you. I think we need to be reminded that Franklin Roosevelt enacted the minimum wage to be the minimum amount people needed to live on. And when we think about affordability, we can think about just the cost side, but we have to think about what people are earning in order to afford the life that they live here in Vermont. In Vermont, we systemically underpay people 20% in every sector. We pay 20% below what pretty much all around us, all our neighbors pay. And so we have a serious affordability issue on what we earn. To afford housing in the Upper Valley, you need to be earning at least $19 or $20 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom apartment. $35 an hour, Mason. People would love to earn $35 an hour. You could actually afford an apartment in the Upper Valley on $35 an hour. So as Alice also pointed out in the first hour, nothing is raised overnight. The minimum wage is designed. I wish it was the livable wage, because the livable wage is quite a bit higher. So I support raising the minimum wage so that people can afford to live, and so that people are less dependent on what our taxes pay for, which is public assistance. Thank you.
Thanks, Allison. Alice, anything left to say?
Yes. The current minimum wage that it went to on January 1st of 2020 is $10.96, I believe. And on 1/1/21, it will go up to $11.75. And then on 1/1/22, it will go up to $12.58. And the tip wage has been raised also. So for someone to live on that, they need to have another job other than one job. And yes, it is very hard for businesses. And so in the COVID times, we were fortunately able to put in a lot of money to help small businesses and those very low wage workers. So it's complicated. Thank you.
Thanks, Alice. Caitlin, another question, please.
Yes, let's look here, Larry. Let's hear from.
Let's have one with that has a yes/no answer.
Yeah, right. So easy to do. We have some more questions from a couple folks that we heard from earlier tonight, but I do see that Beth Gray has her hand up, and I'm not sure what her question is, but we haven't heard from her yet.
Okay.
So maybe we give Beth an opportunity. Beth, are you able to unmute yourself?
Yep. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. First, so my name is Beth Gray. I am a 2-term JP in Springfield. I'm running again. I have immigration experience. So I worked for immigration from 2008 to 2014. So this is kind of in regards to, I think it was Mason that said it.
Doctors? General
We have a kind of people that come to Williston, Vermont through immigration, and where I worked in Portsmouth, we did everything from the data entry all the way up to scheduling things to getting all the fees and everything else to send to the embassies or consulates. So if anybody has any questions, they can ask me. But my question is, as a survivor of domestic violence, and when a family member of the person that committed the crime knows, and another family knows and takes pictures and stuff, there's nothing that can be done on the state level. I contacted the Vermont judicial system, and they tell me there's nothing that can be done. So I'm interested as to what they're willing to do to help create something that can be done, because I'm not the only person, and I'm not interested in me. I'm interested in the other people.
All right, sounds like your question is about response to domestic violence. I'm going to kind of go in reverse order this
Yes.
time and start with Alice.
Yes.
Alice?
I'm not exactly sure what the question is, but certainly Vermont does have a lot of domestic violence programs.
It does.
And I'm not sure wondering what could be done in terms of keeping that person away from the victim, or is that the question?
Would you like me to clarify a little bit, Alice?
Yes, that would be helpful.
So the state can do so much against the person that committed the crime, but when a family member knows, and I guess accessories is the word, when they know what takes place and they've taken pictures of the victim, there's nothing that can be done against, they can't be charged, and there's nothing that can be done. And what can we do to correct that?
Well, I would certainly hope that something could be done and charges could be brought. Certainly that's one of the most common crimes in Vermont involves domestic violence, and we have many persons in prison because of the domestic violence. So I'm not sure. So certainly, I'm not sure, is the prosecutor not charging the person or thinking
the person is being charged, and it's with the state's attorney. But the accessories, the mother and the aunt,
people who were,
what was going on. And when I contacted the Vermont Bar Association, they told me there is nothing that can be done to prosecute the mother and the aunt.
I see. So I guess we should take a look at that.
What can you guys do to correct that?
I'm not familiar that if someone is an accessory to a crime, I would think that they could be charged too. But if there's something there, we should take a look at it.
There is.
Okay.
That's what I'm being told. So that's my question is, what will you guys look at to correct or amend this?
I'm on the Judiciary Committee. If I get reelected, of course, I don't know where I will be if I am reelected, but certainly that's a topic that we should look into and see what we could.
Thank you, Alice. I want to move.
Alice, you know you have my number, so it's something we can look at later.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other candidates want to address the issue that was just presented by Beth?
I can speak on that.
Go right ahead.
Mason?
Yep.
Yeah, Beth, thank you so much. In 2018, I ran as an independent also and got to know your husband there. Domestic violence is something we definitely need to look at our statutory laws because it's going to get worse. We just know that we're in a situation with the pandemic that people are going berserk. And we got to get more help out there for family needs. I'm sorry.
What about the family members?
What I have to say.
That know what's going on and aren't doing anything.
Right. The question that you were asking, the direct law issue that you were told that there was nothing that could be done, the accessory issue. Well, I don't know the details on that, but anything that's an accessory to a crime should be part of a prosecution. So I'm not, I'd have to know a lot more about the situation, but overall, domestic violence, we have to pay attention to it during the time of the pandemic.
All right,
Okay,
so I'm going to say we're going to move on to another topic. Caitlin, you want to give us another question?
Yes, let's see here. I see there's been a few comments from Stuart. Stuart, did you have a specific question at this stage out of the ones that you posed that you wanted to I see questions about fossil fuels and let's see here. Is he here? I'm looking. Maybe he's not here. Maybe he was just chiming in the chat. What about, let's see. We have a question about the cost of education per student. With this person is saying with some of the lowest test scores for grade school and among the lowest 2 or 4 year college enrollment in the state, how do the candidates feel about school choice and support for students wishing to enter trade schools?
That's a great question and a great topic. I'm going to let Dick McCormick, who I know has some experience in the field of education, get us started on that. Dick?
Yeah, thanks. Let me do trade schools first. There are certain elements of a liberal arts education that everybody needs. You shouldn't have to go to college to get the basics, but of our culture and of our political system. But in terms of using education for job preparation, not everybody needs a liberal arts education to be a productive, earning citizen. The trades actually these days seem to pay better. My brother, the electrician, makes a lot more than I, the history major, ever made. And there are kids who are smart enough, but their intelligence doesn't, and their temperament doesn't lend itself to sitting in a classroom, studying the liberal arts. So I think we need to, and in fact we are doing that. We are looking at the idea, not necessarily of going to college, but of getting post-high school additional education. And I think it's a very good way to go.
Thank you, Dick. Jack, anything to share?
Yeah. Getting to the trade schools, start in high school. A long time ago, they had machine shops in high school. I don't know if they still run them, where when a student graduated high school, they basically prepared to go to the machine shops. But really look at starting your kids in high school, preparing them either for college or trade school. I would really recommend state and local heavy funding of all your trade schools and colleges. And another thing that you may want to look into is, in the past, if you were in the military, you had your GI Bill, which would fund your schools. So look into that also. But I would have a big priority on state funding of trade schools and colleges.
Thanks, Jack. Allison, anything from you?
Yes, this is a subject near and dear to my heart. The career and technical education centers, I mean, are just one of the glories of our Vermont education system. And one of the things I really hope that we are doing, we have 3 pilots going in the state, trying to reduce the barriers between a regular mainstream high school education and the career and technical education centers, because particularly with our high-tech world and people wanting to learn how to program and do gaming and high-tech, create incredible advanced technologies, a lot of kids want to have access to that, which they may, we just need to integrate the systems better. And so we're working on that. I've loved working with Stuart, with the Springfield Career and Technical Education Center, and Scott Farr, who's been such a terrific person to work with as we try and improve our workforce education system. We need to also create more short-term certificate programs. We talked about this earlier, but so that people can take courses of value in a shorter period of time that cost less, and so that we can build more opportunities for people, because we have too few people going on to do advanced education, and we really need to improve our cradle to career program of educating people. There's no question. We need to continue to invest in the Vermont State College system, which is where so many of these great programs are. And so I applaud the work we did bridging the funding so that we can explore how we can keep the Vermont State College system viable, because they are delivering most of these fabulous programs.
Thank you, Allison. Doug, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, thanks very much. Allison, that was great, and I would echo a lot of what you're saying. I think this ties into the challenges with a lot of the closing colleges in Vermont. And one of my thoughts with the Valley Herald interview recently was, how can we use that space that is coming back? There's a lot of schools that are closing, and it's either going to be a consolidation with the larger schools, universities and colleges in Vermont. But that space would be great space for technical training for trade schools, and to also incubate for the tech future for children in Vermont and high school graduates who may not want to go to college, but this would be a great opportunity. So I think we should dovetail this need with the space that's coming available, that unfortunately is coming available because these schools can't sustain themselves today in this economy.
Thanks, Doug. Keith, anything from you?
From what I've heard, there's a large shortage of people in the trades, which hurts Vermont's economy. We have to get the trade schools filled. And one of my ideas I've been kicking around is to do like a lottery system, where if you sign up for the trade, pick so many people, and they can go to school for half the cost. They just have to stay in Vermont for X number of years afterwards. Also about public school. Yes, the cost of public education is ridiculous for what we get. Last I heard, it was around $21,000 per student in public education. We have St. Johnsbury Academy, which is one of the nationally recognized schools in the nation. And, well, I guess it would be in the nation. But their cost per student is around $15,000. Why the discrepancy? One thing is the State Board of Education, and that's setting mandates. That just adds to the cost of education. My idea is to get rid of the Department of Education and the state school board, instead have members of school boards and superintendents from across the state meet several times a year, discuss issues and what's really working well for them, and bring in people from very successful programs to talk about it. And we can build our education system, and we can also cut down the cost of education too.
Thank you, Keith. Caitlin, another topic for us.
Oh, can I speak?
Oh, sure. Go right ahead, Mason. I didn't mean to neglect you.
I know I'm out here in the cow pasture, so it's okay. Hey, so with the education, I've been speaking about the world's turned upside down. Where are we going to be with money? I think that as kids are getting out of high school, we need to tap into their desires to be a part of the economic system. And for an example, our governor right now could easily walk away from Thunder Road and start drag racing electric cars at Lightning Road, and encourage and create scholarships for young people to create Vermont's first utility electric vehicle that we can all use to go get the groceries. We have a transportation issue. We need jobs, and we need to create them. I don't see any creation going on that relates to the education. And by the way, with our younger kids, so many of our small towns are just so fed up. One of the easiest things we need to do is just bankrupt the public education system, figure out our debt, and really start over with our young young kids because it's a disaster. You just look around, and it just keeps snowballing on the taxpayers. So we need to redesign. It's time. We are in a new world. And thank you.
Thanks, Mason. Caitlin, another topic, please.
Before you go into another, can I just
sure,
make
Jack.
about a
No,
30,
welcome back.
30-second comment? Everyone, higher education really is the key to Vermont's dilemma. And Allison Clarkson brought out a real good point. Your trade schools, we should have them in every city, every town in Vermont are trade schools, and then support our colleges also. But have some really high-tech courses in all these, from computer programming to electronics to all the high-tech stuff. This is going to be the real key to Vermont, is develop an education system that is the envy of the whole country. And again, it goes to trade schools in every city and town, and then colleges where we need them, and program everyone when they graduate high school to either go to a tech school into college.
Yes, yes.
Thanks, Jack. Alice Nitka, I didn't ask for any comments from you on this topic, so I wanted to give you that opportunity if you had something you wanted to share.
I'd certainly like to give a plug for Vermont Tech, which has been working with private industry for a number of years. I think their ratio of everybody getting out of their school, the two-year school, gets a job, and they have many options. They're recruited by quite a few places. And they, thinking of the business in Randolph, lost the name of it for a second, but they even bought equipment to put into Vermont Technical College so that they could train people who would go to work for them. They have excellent programs. There's a young fellow in my town who went out of there, went to GE, making a fortune. I don't remember his exact salary, but way, way beyond what the average person is making. And also he's going back to school at Vermont Tech to get higher education. I mean, we absolutely have to keep those programs. And there's also the program whereby students can go to college while they're in high school and can benefit from those programs as well. They can still be going to higher education while they're in high school. We've had that program for quite a few years. So hopefully we're getting a lot done there.
Thank you, Alice. Caitlin.
So this question, let's see here. I might like to hear this maybe a little bit more broadly addressed, but this question is, do the candidates agree that Vermont cities should allow or provide sanctuary and services for illegal immigrants? I'd be interested to hear people's perspective on immigration in terms of opportunities for workforce and just, addressing that issue in a general way as well.
All right. I'm going to start with Doug, just because we haven't started before. Doug?
I kind of felt that it was going to be me. I should have majored on that.
Dirty trick.
That's good. It's like roulette. Before I moved back to Vermont 4 years ago, my wife and I and our son, we lived in Washington, D.C., and I worked for a nonprofit there. I did two things there: affordable housing, which if we speak to that, I'll mention it more. But I also ran a CDFI, which is a community development financial institution. It's essentially a nonprofit bank, and I was the president of the nonprofit bank. And there at that nonprofit bank, I was working to establish a DACA lending program to help those that were seeking citizenship have essentially forgivable loans to help them become citizens, which those loans that would go towards their legal process, the application fee, and to have an attorney support them through the process. So Vermont's a very unique state as it relates to immigration. I think it still touches us like other states, and I would love to see us do more here. I personally was on the front lines with this when I was in Washington, D.C.
Thanks, Doug. Dick, you want to chime in?
No, it's a difficult question, but I will. Yeah, I think my understanding of sanctuary city is that it's probably more of a statement than an actual safe haven. The immigration authorities do not, who are federal, do not suddenly lose their authority because a local municipality has declared itself a sanctuary, but it's a statement, and it's an important statement. And the statement is that this is a country of immigrants, and that most of actually all of us, except those who are Native American, are descended from immigrants at one time or another. And that our economy, the dirty little secret is, for all the hoopla from the president and so on, the fact is our economy is heavily dependent on immigrants, including illegal immigrants. The Vermont agricultural economy is heavily dependent on migrant workers. And it's very convenient there are people who are struggling economically, and to tweak their resentment and blame it on the immigrants is an easy, cheap shot for if you're ruthless enough. But the fact is, these are the strangers within our gate, and we owe them at least a minimal level of humanity. And so, for when a municipality decides to take that kind of statement, I think it is okay. I think it's admirable.
Thank you, Dick. Jack, you have a viewpoint?
Yes, I do. Earlier, when I introduced myself, I informed everyone I'm able to work across the aisle with everyone, but I do have certain areas that I feel very strong about, and I won't compromise on them. I firmly believe in legal immigration, and I absolutely do not support sanctuary states. I don't support sanctuary cities. I believe in legal immigration. Now, kind of touching on what Dick said. Now, I grew up in Southwest Colorado. I grew up in a time when there was no border control with Mexico or Canada. And through work visas, we had labor come up from Mexico. There was never a problem. People would come and go. And we still have this. We have work visas where people can come in. But again, I do not believe in sanctuary cities or sanctuary states under no circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Allison?
Well, I think Dick and Doug have said well how I feel. I think our farms, our agricultural industry here in Vermont couldn't function without migrant labor at the moment. Some of it's legal, some of it isn't, but they do the work that many Vermonters are not willing to do. At a price that the farm is able to manage. And many immigrants bring a wealth of experience, skills, and talents that this country needs. We need to harness the energy of the motivated immigrant coming to this country, and they are motivated. And we see this in wanting to do reciprocal licensing with immigrants who come to this state, to make it easier to license them. So that they can do what they were trained to do in their country, often better than how we train them here. So I see them as a huge opportunity. I'm the daughter of somebody who came here from another country and was thrilled to become an American citizen, but we need to reduce the barriers to citizenship. I would support an open arms, welcoming people and their skills and talents, bring them to America, bring them to Vermont, help make us a better nation, a better state.
Thanks, Allison. Keith?
I agree with Jack. He is right on. We do have immigration. We've got a system that's been here forever. It's always worked fine. All of a sudden they say this isn't working. We got to just let anybody in. unscreened, unvetted. To say that farms won't survive without illegals is not even close to true. I was in the produce business for many years and dealt with farms, had migrant workers. They're all legal, all here, all in the rules set up by the Department of Agriculture and the immigration system, and they did fine with it. The problem with most illegals is they get taken advantage of. I know one grower that I did business with, they paid under the amount minimum because they could. Because if you don't like it, go elsewhere. So we have a system that works. Just maybe it needs to be tweaked a little bit, make it a little easier to get in, but we have to do that. Otherwise, we're going to get flooded with people. I know in areas, say down in the Boston area, where there's so many Hispanics that come here, even if they're coming here legally, a lot of them don't learn the language. So they tax the school system, they tax hospitals, having to hire interpreters, the court systems, interpreters. We can do it legally, and that's fine. No illegal.
Thank you, Keith. Alice?
So I'm not sure what the requirements are to become a sanctuary city. I think it's the city or town votes on it. I believe Brattleboro is a sanctuary city, sanctuary town. The thing I see is our immigration system, we aren't doing what I think we should be doing, and that is working to get more people from around the world who are in desperate straits, many dying all the time, and to make provisions to bring more immigrants into our country. The government could do it, and we should do it because there's terrible human suffering in the world.
Thank you, Alice. Mason?
Yes, well, I have problems with both the Republicans and the Democrats on this issue. Political asylum has actually been tortured here in the United States. We have been rejecting people who have been fighting for democracy around the world, and they're finding themselves right back in the firing squad. We do have problems with our laws, and we do need to correct them. And if you truly look at the history of our country, we have bashed immigrants for so long. I was raised in Alaska, and, you know, I was there with Sarah Palin looking at Russia, you know, and plenty of immigration, and people respected people for who they are. It wasn't them. It's all of us together. And if we need to tweak this, we need to tweak it. The DACA kids, give me a break. These kids have grown up in the United States, and they're living in limbo for the last 4 or 5 years now. We need to straighten out this myth, because many of them have college educations, and they want to give to this country. What are we thinking? What are we doing? Thank you.
Thanks, Mason. Caitlin, we have just over 10 minutes. Do you have another question, or should we do closing statements?
Can I real quick interject?
Oh, sure, Jack, go right ahead.
Another one? Yeah, real quick. Two things. High school kids. We talk about, you know, jobs that only immigrants will do. When I was in the 9th grade, I started working on farms every summer. High school kids can do a lot of this. And they can supplement the immigrants coming in. So right there is part of your labor, solving your labor problem. Out of the country now, Dr. Ben Carson brought out a good point. Take the UN, because most of these countries where these immigrants come from, where Alice talked about these horrible conditions, it's because of their own government. You know, they grow up under these totalitarian type governments where they murder their citizens, rape, pillage, and plunder their own country. That's the problem that these countries face, where a lot of these people are coming from. So it's internal problems where if you have the UN can set up sanctuary places where these people can go to, but you can't flood countries with immigrants, which are caused by problems in other countries. So that's one of the other solutions.
All right, thanks, Jack. Caitlin?
Yeah, so if there's time, I wanted to let one other audience member that hasn't
Sure,
spoken yet
go right
pose a
ahead.
question. We've got, yeah, Joanne Ehrenhaus, if you'd like to chime in with your question. Hi, thanks for being here, Joanne. Oh, we gotta get her unmuted here. Hang on.
I got it.
There you go.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I want to ask our legislators if this session they would take a look at the statutes around elder abuse. Right now, our statute is so poorly written that a person has to be considered a vulnerable adult, which is a very ambiguous term. And, you know, I like to see it more along the lines of child abuse statutes. There's no child that has to qualify to be protected against abuse. And I would like to see us really state our statutes the same way that New Hampshire does. You don't have to think about, gee, who's vulnerable? Oh my God, do they need to be protected? No, they have a simple age criteria. If you are 60 and over, you are determined to be older. And therefore, if you're being abused and you're over 60, it's automatically a crime. That's all I want.
Thanks for that
Thank
question, Joanne. And it sounded like it was for the incumbents, the current legislators. So we'll start with them. Who'd like to start? Allison?
Thank you, Joanne. If I'm lucky enough to be reelected, I'd be happy to work on this issue. I had thought we had done a lot of work actually on the vulnerable adult issue. Dick serves on health and welfare, and he's probably better able to answer this. But I think anyone who's elected would be happy to work with you on improving our any protections for our vulnerable adults, because we obviously would all like to make sure they're as protected as possible. So, but Dick may have a better answer. I know I've done quite a bit of work on this, so I would be interested to know what additionally we could do.
Great.
Thanks, Allison. Dick, I was going to go to you anyway, so it's all yours.
Okay. And am I on?
Yes.
You hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I will get to the actual question, but just a little background first. We often hear from constituents who feel they sort of resent paying their taxes. They resent that they think there are too many laws. And there's this idea that we go to Montpelier year after year and just keep building an ever higher pile of laws. Mainly what we do is we take existing laws and tweak them.
That's good.
Sometimes delete a section, add a section. And it's largely in response to comments exactly like yours. I have been serving on the Health and Welfare Committee for several years, and if I'm reelected and we're reappointed to that, we take up the issue of elders every year. I can't think of a time when we didn't have some elder-related issue. And I've got to say, I have not heard that particular complaint.
It's a big
I'm
issue.
aware that yes, that we've talked about the definitions of a vulnerable. So the idea that that's an impediment to doing something about a problem is something we absolutely should take a look at. If I'm reelected, you know where to find me.
Gotcha. Thank you very much, Dick.
Thanks, Dick. Alice?
So I, of course, was a children's social worker for all of my career, did a lot with children who had been abused, investigated cases, did all kinds of things. And I certainly am concerned about elders as well. I'm not sure that even people older than 60 want to be considered vulnerable, and I'm not sure that that was what Joanne had in mind. She just wanted that to be the age whereby if someone's being that would be looked into.
Yeah, Alice, I don't want the criteria
changed. You just want
to be
age
vulnerable. Just make it simpler, because vulnerable can be interpreted so many different ways. And that's an impediment to APS being able to do anything. It's an impediment to law enforcement. It puts a lot of the burden right on the individual who is the victim. Why would we do that? New Hampshire's law is so clear and so simple. And that would be the best solution, and it would take almost no time.
So it would be
Yeah.
good to take a look at that. I think.
Thank you.
Bring it up again if we all get back there, whoever gets back there, bring it up with them so that it could, I'll make a note of it myself, but.
That's great. You guys are great. Thank you.
I do want to move through the challengers on this issue, starting with Doug.
Thanks. Well, I think simplifying it makes a lot of sense. And if the state could look at what New Hampshire is doing, that would be wonderful. Making it very gray with the definition of vulnerable does nobody any benefit. So if there's a way to make it easier, cleaner, and more simple, I think that would serve everyone well.
Thank you,
Thank
Doug.
you.
Jack?
Well, thanks for asking.
Jack?
I think Jack is
If Jack isn't there, then Mason seems to be ready. Mason?
Yeah, I am. I'm here. Was thinking about historically what it really means to be gaining in our age and how many Vermonters are isolated and alone. And historically, when we had larger farmhouses, in the large kitchen with the wood stove going and the family around, many elderly people spent their last days actually in an adult rocker, like a baby cradle, but it was adult size. And at least they had this love. And I think that's a real critical part of it, because when you talk about abuse, loneliness is a huge one. And it's definitely an area we need to look into as we have an aging population, and plus the economy. I mean, if we're going to spiral right now, where's all this money coming from? We're going to have a lot of aging people having a tough time getting through. Thank you.
Thanks, Mason. Keith?
Yes, he's got a very good point. I don't know why the legislation's always written so complicated. I've read several bills that make your head spin. You know, if you have the formula 1 + 1 = 2, if it's written as a law, it's going to be except after E and not after C or something like that. Just plain laws that explain exactly what needs to be done. That's all we need in this state and in this country.
Thank you, Keith. Caitlin, I think we've come to the end of our session. Do you have any closing words to send us home?
I'd just like to thank everyone again for joining us this evening. I think this was a really thoughtful discussion. I'm really pleased with the range of conversation that we had here tonight. I appreciate everyone's time, and I know the election is just around the bend, so we're very near to that process, but we really are grateful for everyone just giving of their time to have these conversations. And it's one of the beautiful things about living in a small community in a small state is that we can have really respectful and thoughtful discussions. And I think doing work at the local level is really a fulfilling and meaningful endeavor, especially in these challenging times. So I just want to thank everyone, for their participation and involvement. And, I have optimism for Springfield and for Vermont, and in spite of the challenges. And I think, this conversation was really encouraging. So I want to just thank everyone.
And thank you, Caitlin, and thank you, the Chamber, for sponsoring this amidst all your challenges.
Thank all of you.
Thanks, Caitlin.
Thanks,
Keith, and the Chamber.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, candidates.
Bye-bye.
Good night now.
It's a great,
Thanks, everybody.
it was great. Caitlin.
Good night. Thanks.
Night.
Yeah.
Let me get out of here.